All right, so it is 11 o'clock, so we're going to get started. My name is Stephanie from Acquia, so we just want to wish everyone a good morning, a good afternoon, and good evening to everyone across the globe that's joining us today. We're thrilled to kick off today's webinar, Purina's Approach to Digital Innovation, Scale, Speed, and Open Source. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. If you have any audio issues, please send them to me in the Q&A tab, and I'll help you out. If you have any questions for the presenters, please submit them in the Q&A tab as well, and we'll answer them towards the end of the presentation. Slides and the recording of this webinar will be posted to acquia.com and also sent to you via email within the next few days. So feel free to share with any coworkers or colleagues that you have. Without further delay, I'm going to pass it over to Ryan from Acquia, who will start us off.
Thank you, Stephanie, and hello to everyone who's joined the webinar today. Thank you so much for being with us. We are thrilled and honored to have Purina and the Nerdery here to talk about their approach to digital innovation. It is an amazing story, so let's go ahead and dive right in. I have with me today Jill from Purina and Jason from the Nerdery. My name is Ryan Pacchini. I am the Director of Product Marketing for Acquia's Drupal Cloud. I've been here for a long time. And Purina and Nerdery are a long-standing partner and customer, and they just have a tremendous story. So before we get into the details of their story and some of the lessons that you can maybe gather from their journey and where they are today and where they're going, I wanted to kick it over to Jill and Jason to introduce themselves, a little bit about briefly their work history and their role within their respective organizations. So first to you, Jill, and then Jason, please.
Thanks, Ryan. I'm Jill Taylor. I'm the Senior Digital Product Lead on Purina. I just celebrated my 15-year anniversary with Purina, have loved every minute of working there, have worked in a variety of roles from project management to branded marketing, and entered the digital world about 8 years ago. Just have had a great experience with the company, and I'm relatively new to the product owner role. This will be about 1.5 years for me. So I've learned a lot along the way, and have definitely valued our partnership with the Nerdery. So thanks very much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jill. Thanks for being with us. And Jason.
Hi everyone. Thanks, Ryan. Jason Wan. I am a Drupal architect here at Nerdery. I have been working with Drupal for 10 plus years, starting out as a site builder for a nonprofit here in New Orleans, and just over the years have been really passionate about that, and just glad to be participating in this webinar, and also helping Purina with this platform and serving as the architect and tech lead there.
Great, thank you so much, Jason. Thanks for being with us. So before we get into the details of Purina's story, one of the things that we always try to do at Acquia is look at the macro trends that are impacting both our customers and our customers' customers. And when it came to the Purina story, one of the things that we recognized was a challenge and an opportunity for organizations that were similar, specifically large corporations who have multiple brands, is managing and scaling the digital experiences that they're responsible for is a big undertaking. And one of the reasons for that is because today more and more of the buyer's journey is taking place online. And pre-COVID, there was already that transition taking place where for most organizations, let's say 50% of the buyer's journey was in person, let's say in a retail location, and 50% was online, maybe the research and social aspects of a buying experience. But because of COVID, the transition to online has been expedited. Luckily for Purina, which you'll hear about in a few minutes, they were ahead of the curve with the Nerdery's help in being ready for that transition to take place. And while there's a ton of data and inputs that go into a customer's digital experience, content is still the lifeblood of that buyer's journey. The reason is because that's what a customer experiences. That's what they see. That's what they make an emotional connection with. And for the vast majority of organizations, there's been a major shift that needs to take place, which is taking all the content that they have as a company across physical and digital touch points and getting it into a digital format, into a place where it can be consumed on digital channels. And this is across a variety of different buckets of content. So this is awareness content about a specific topic or industry. In Purina's case, it's about pets and how you take care of pets and how you can be a responsible pet owner and how you can help your pet flourish and have a great relationship. All the way through to advocacy, which is spreading goodwill or spreading advocacy about the company that you work with and the experience that you've had with that company. And then there's a bunch of phases in between. And of course, the most effective organizations are delivering this content across a variety of digital channels wherever their customers are engaged. And so this is a big challenge to get the customer the content that they want at the right phase in the buying journey on the right channel. And the goal of an enterprise CMS, which you're going to hear from Jill and Jason and how they architected their enterprise CMS to deliver great digital experiences, is to drive sales and customer retention by delivering relevant content to your buyers at the right phase on the right channel. And the challenge that we've seen organizations like Purina have run into is the choices that they have to deliver the right content at the right phase in the buyer journey. So traditional web CMS tools are historically really good at security, at scalability, and there's a ton of features, but they're notoriously hard to use for the average business user. And so they don't reach to the ends of the organization. They stay in a central IT function or a central marketing function, and there's limited work that can be done with them. That's why you've seen the emergence of consumer site building tools within large organizations, because they don't want to wait to create the kind of digital experience that they want. So they go to something that's easy to use and fast. But for an organization like Purina, there's problems with that because of the security and governance and the corporate standards that need to be upheld, as well as brand standards. And then less and less we see DIY or custom solutions, but the reason that these tend to be an option is because they're flexible and they're purpose-built to satisfy a business need, but long-term maintenance and security are always a challenge. That's for one site. When you think about how that challenge I just outlined impacts an organization like Purina, they have a variety of different sites, brand sites, different types of customer experience applications that need to be built. They need to be centralized, they need to be governed, and of course it needs to be delivered quickly. And so we are so excited to have Purina here with us today in the Nerdery, because we think that there's, it's just a tremendous success story. Obviously they have a direction that they're looking to go in the future as well, and evolve their digital experience, but they've learned a ton of lessons. They've had a tremendous amount of success. And that's why I'm happy to pass it over here to Jill to tell you a little bit about Purina and their story alongside the Nerdery. So Jill, over to you.
Sure. So Purina, we are a company of pet owners and pet lovers. We've been in business for 90 years, and everything that we do every day is rooted in the notion that people and pets are better together. It's the one office, I think, that you walk into where you'll see more pictures of pets on people's desks than you will of their children. I'm a pet owner. I have 3 rescue dogs. They're unfortunately right here with me because I've invaded their space during this quarantine period, but they're worn out and hopefully will remain quiet for the rest of this. But we're pet owners, we're pet lovers. We have pets at home. We have pets in our office. We're a pet-friendly office. And everything is rooted in that passion that we have for pets. So it's about nutrition and creating cutting-edge nutritional advancements, but it's also about the well-being of pets. So we have really strong partnerships with the pet welfare world that we value tremendously. And we're also really working to be on kind of the bleeding edge with respect to research, with respect to digital advancements. So it extends beyond nutrition. It's really about creating the best atmosphere for the pets that we love and bringing people and pets together.
And I'm just going to say that Nerdery, you know, as a digital consultancy of nerds who are passionate about creating customer experiences and also creating the right technical solutions for our clients, that we're also very passionate and nerdy about our pets too. We've got a strong culture of pets, and we We often bring pets to the office, as you can see here in this pic. And that passion, we just align directly with Purina, and we just really enjoy working with them and helping them deliver on this platform.
Great. So where were we when we started this journey? I'll touch on the history a little bit, but essentially we had a very complex digital presence. We have a number of brands that fall under the Purina portfolio, and with that number of brands, there was a lot of complexity, kind of teetering on the edge of chaos for a bit. So the strategy behind the HubX work was to really use that portfolio, use those range of brands to work for us, and really leverage the strengths of our portfolio. So we wanted to enhance our digital presence, and we wanted to be able to go to market more quickly. A large organization, it's hard to move quickly, it's hard to have that agility, but everything that we wanted to do with this strategy was rooted in having just that, having the agility to get to market more quickly, having a very consumer-centric approach, but also having a centralized team that could really drive us forward from a digital standpoint. So it started with speed. As I mentioned, a large organization, it sometimes feels like you're moving the Titanic when you're trying to get to market quickly. We had 79 different brand sites that fit under our umbrella. So we needed to find a way to really centralize those sites, build them on a common code, and have a team that could advance us more quickly. And so having that common code base was kind of the start. And then we started working with Acquia and with the Drupal CMS so that we could stand up these sites and publish content much more quickly. And also key to that was compliance. So we had to make sure that all of our digital sites were able to pass through the necessary security scans and weren't creating any concerns for the organization. So that's having everything built under the Acquia infrastructure, having the central team really enabled us to move more quickly.
I think if I can add something back to that speed slide. Yeah, so when working with Purina and we have a product roadmap where we're delivering on set goals and objectives, the delivery process is also flexible in the sense that we can quickly pivot and deliver new things where a Purina stakeholder group comes to Jill and asks to get something out to market much more quickly that's not on the product roadmap already. And we certainly pivot and make that happen.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jason and Jill, for that. Okay, so the second point I think was scale.
So scale. So I mentioned we had 79 different sites, and we wanted to Jason's point, be able to bring those into a spot where we could create solutions that would work across the organization. So it was about speed, but it's also about prototyping and developing features and functionality that would start small initially, but ultimately kind of benefit the entire organization. And then from an innovation standpoint, so Drupal was new to the organization, new to me. And I think one of the things that intrigued us most was the Contrib-First approach. So being able to leverage the community under Drupal and to borrow ideas and borrow functionality and borrow features without having to rebuild things really freed up the team to explore other passions and explore other innovations that we could do. This was new to us. So before, when we had 79 different sites, they were built 79 different ways, and you could understand that there was a lot of duplicative work. So we were spending a lot of time building the same things over and over. Once we brought all those sites onto a common platform, onto a common code base, we eliminated those inefficiencies, and therefore we could pursue different features or different technologies that would ultimately benefit the entire organization and benefit all of those sites.
I'll also add here that that approach and collaborating with the Drupal community at large to sharpen the solutions that we are needing for our platform. When a stakeholder group asks about a feature, we're able to, sort of adopt a development methodology and mindset from the community in Drupal and think about the solutions more holistically so that we're not delivering a specific feature for one stakeholder group. We take a step back, consider incremental investment or sort of abstract that solution, make it more flexible so that it allows other stakeholder groups to sort of reap the rewards of that solution.
Absolutely. It's a great point, and maybe we'll spend a little bit more time on it later from both of you. But Jill, I'll let you continue here on Purina's HubX approach.
Sure. So where we were and where we are, I think we like to say we went from A to Z pretty quickly. But the mission was to simplify what was a complex environment, speed up our go-to-market, centralize a team, so create the team and create the infrastructure that would enable us to do just that. And as part of that, it was about extending best practices across the board. So we knew that we had best practices with respect to user experience, with respect to SEO, but getting different agencies who are managing all the sites to adopt those was pretty challenging. And so that's where when we could centralize the efforts and build a common platform, we were able to kind of apply those best practices, learn new best practices and adopt those and kind of do those in one place and extend those globally across the entire infrastructure. So to do that, it did require stakeholder buy-in. As you can imagine, when you have a multitude of brands, they like to do things their own way. They like to build things their own way. And so it did take kind of a change in thought across the entire organization to really adopt this. So we started big. We said, look, we're going to take a consumer-centric view. We think we found the right platform. We think we have this team of subject matter experts that can really deliver on this overall vision to simplify our digital presence and to enhance our digital presence. And we were able to get buy-in from the organization pretty quickly. We started with our chief marketing officer, kind of painted the story, painted the vision to her at a very high level. Obviously, we couldn't get too much in the weeds with respect to the technical aspect of it, but we were able to show, we used a house analogy. So we like to say that prior to this consolidation, we had a subdivision of multiple brand sites. And among those brand sites, we were fragmenting our traffic, fragmenting our search authority. And so what we wanted to move to was one solid house built on a really solid foundation. And we painted that picture, shared the vision, and kind of shared our hypothesis of what we could do with respect to search engine visibility, with respect to traffic, with respect to creating features that would benefit the entire organization. And we got buy-in pretty quickly and were able to kind of move on that approach once we secured that.
Jason, anything you want to add there?
No, thank you.
Jill, I'll hold this question till the end, but I think one of the things that the audience will maybe will touch on throughout the next session as well. The standardization at the C level made sense, but the brands, they all still want what they want. And I know you guys will touch on that shortly, but I know that that is a question that's probably pressing in people's minds. So we'll keep moving on because I know some of it is further on. So,
Sure.
So I'll let you guys continue on this slide.
Okay. So it started with building the team. As I mentioned, part of the selling into the organization was to establish that we had the experts in place, that we had the right individuals that could help us deliver on this mission. So it was internal folks. So we have user experience experts, our content publishing team, the web, kind of the digital center of excellence, and then also our strong partnership with the Nerdery. And all of that was central to the effort. If we didn't have the team in place, we were never going to be able to deliver on the mission. And then it was the foundation. So when we're building the house, we had to make sure that we had the right foundation in place and the right partners to help us build that. And so that's where the research behind Acquia and Drupal, and Jason, you can touch on that because it's a little bit before my time. But we did do a lot of research to understand what was the right foundation for us, and pretty quickly Acquia and the Drupal Contrib-First community rose to the top for us.
Right. And speaking with Jill and other stakeholders at Purina, the choice of Drupal provided that foundation with being an open source solution, having the community and having that the landscape of all the different solutions available, and not to mention, you know, its reputation around performance and security, and then looking to Acquia Site Factory to provide that sort of centralized governance, ability to scale, and then notably around Purina's process around security scans, having a single point to scan to make sure that everything is compliant, and then being able to use those tools within Acquia Site Factory to help us with that deployment process and getting those new features out quickly.
So it started with the consumer-centric view. So this, Purina has always been very rooted in our consumers. Nothing we do is without getting kind of understanding, empathizing with our consumers and understanding what they need. And that's what we had to extend to our digital presence. And this was a little bit newer to the company, some of the user needs and UX research, but that was where this project started. We had to understand why users were coming to our site, what were they looking for, how can we help them really get into their minds. And so from there, we developed the need states and the user personas, and kind of continued with that through the various elements of our user research. But everything was first vetted with our users, ensuring that we were doing the work to empathize, understand what they need, and deliver an experience that would meet their needs and then ultimately delight them. So this is where the complexities get in. So these are just a few of our brands. We have a lot of brands that fall under our portfolio. And so in phase one, every brand had their own site. They had all built their site their own way, working with their own digital agency and own development agency. So the first step was to consolidate that. So bringing all these different brand sites and different code bases into one. So establishing a common code base that would work for all of these brands, and really having more governance over that. So when we have a common code base, we can centralize the work that's done there and really build features that start small and eventually scale out to all the brands. Gives us more flexibility to explore, to learn, to prototype, and then to kind of scale out across the different brands. And then from a publishing standpoint, we had a centralized publishing team that would push all the content out. So imagine the efficiencies gained when we went from having a multitude of agencies creating content and publishing content. Now we have one centralized team. We have a workflow process where all the tickets, all the requests for content flow through this team, and we're pushing everything out in a pretty speedy manner, but getting that content out there in a really easy, much easier and much more efficient and effective way.
And I think that consolidation allows, standardizing on a core set of features and functionality so that we can manage that across the platform for all of these individual brands. But then that allowed us to reinvest and focus on unique experiences that one particular brand may want or need. And then, so for example, I think many of these brands here offer some sort of product selector experience where they walk a site visitor through and selecting the right product for them. That maybe started with one single brand, but then we approached it in a way and built it in a way that other brands can then leverage that experience because it becomes a core platform feature. And then in some cases, I can speak to like Beyond or Pro Club, they have very unique experiences that's really specific to them, with a traceability map where site visitors can sort of navigate an interactive map to find out where the products, ingredients are sourced, and then Pro Club with a custom membership experience that's unique to them. The platform has the core platform and those features, but it still offers flexibility so that you can speak to those particular brands, customers, and those site visitors.
Yeah, I think another good example is, so ProPlan is a brand that underwent a major packaging change. And along with that, you can imagine there's some consumer frustration, or a tendency for there to be consumer frustration because they can't find the bag that they want on the shelf. So ProPlan came to the team and asked if we could develop a feature where a consumer could search by their product name, by the UPC, by ingredients, and kind of pull forward that product on site. And when they pulled that forward, they could see kind of a before and after view of the package. So it would help them, here's what your package used to look like, here's what it looks like now, and just help them find that on shelf more easily. And so that started with ProPlan, but ProPlan is not the only brand that has those major packaging changes, and that need isn't solely on the ProPlan consumer. That need could apply to all of our users. So that's one feature. It started with the ProPlan brand, but ultimately we could scale it out to any brand that's about to undergo a major packaging change.
Yeah, thanks for sharing both of those examples, Jill and Jason. I think that one of the things that we continue to hear at Acquia that you guys have just highlighted is the reuse, right? By standardizing the reuse that you get out of the feature. So whether it's Purina or in this case, Nerdery, who's been your development partner, that things aren't being built over and over again. So there's efficiency across the enterprise. But the other thing that it's a theme that seems to be coming out of what you're saying on the slide is agility, and agility for each of the brands to make pivots as they see fit, whether it's they see new functionality that they know is going to drive business, whether a product selector, or they have a change in their branding or a change in some of their core messaging. The structure that you set up behind the scenes allows for them to make those pivots as the market changes and as the brands evolve. So it's really just amazing to see what you've done at a corporate level that enables the agility at the brand level that I think so many of them were probably looking for initially when they built their site on their own. They thought they were going to get agility by doing it their way, but you've actually engineered it in a way that they get what they want, and you also get the standardization that drives efficiency for Purina as a whole. So I think that's just an amazing part of your story, and thanks for sharing those concrete examples that I think probably a lot of our viewers can connect with. So I think this is Jason here, so I'll let you guys continue. Is that correct?
I think Jill was going to take on the first couple points here.
Yep. So from the consolidation side of things, I mentioned that the first step was to bring all those sites onto one common platform. The next step was to merge the sites. So we had what we deemed a power property in Purina.com. That was our one site that was strictly for the Purina brand. So once we got all of the range brand sites, and by range brands, I mean like Dog Chow, ProPlan, Purina One, once we got those on the common platform, the next step was to merge those under the Purina.com URL so we could leverage the search authority of Purina.com and the traffic and really use that to raise the tides for all of the brands. So all of the brands migrated under that URL. And that provided, as you can imagine, tremendous lift in SEO authority and SEO visibility and traffic. The next step was to start supporting Canada and LATAM. So those sites were migrated onto the platform as well. And our central team, we're lean but we're mean, and we were able to help manage those sites as well and apply some of the UX best practices, some of the SEO best practices, and really kind of help push those sites forward as a result of migrating to our common platform.
Then as that happened, I believe Canada, Purina Canada and Purina Latin America were also looking to make great use of this platform they've built. And then when we started to support them and internationalize the platform so that they can come on and leverage that core set of functionality, and then continue to adopt those features as they shifted onto the platform. And about this time, we started to reevaluate some of the technical solutions and adopting this Drupal Contrib-First approach, where we really carefully looked at, as the platform grew, we had some custom solutions that initially were started out, and we started to shift those in a more outward-facing looking to the Drupal Contrib space, see what's available, see what features we could possibly contribute ourselves to satisfy not only an individual Purina stakeholder group, but make that feature robust and flexible so that other stakeholder groups, whether that's in Canada or Latin America, can use those features. A couple of things come to mind with that approach where, we're really just trying to take in the stakeholder requests, make sure we understand it from the many different user stories, not just the site visitor, but how is the content author, how's that experience? How are we going to enable them to make use of this tool? And also the developer experience. One thing comes to mind here with that approach and the internationalization is that some of Purina's product packaging gets reused in other markets. So for example, US product packaging get used in New Zealand. And we were able to create, they had a request where they wanted to be able to sort of personalize based on geography to show messaging to those site visitors coming from New Zealand because of the product packaging that includes domains, the .com domains pointing to US web properties. And when we took that request and we offered a couple of solutions there, but one of them being more robust and more flexible so that they can, without a code deployment, point and click their way to new messaging, targeting new site visitors from different geographies, so that that feature not only served the New Zealand stakeholder group, but also could serve and be reused across the platform, such as in Latin America, where that scenario could occur. And so I think, just that Contrib-First approach is not, simply taking things off the shelf, but it's looking for ways to provide a much more robust and flexible solution with incremental investment so that it really empowers the Purina and their content authoring team and all those different stakeholders.
Yeah, Jason, one of the things I love that you said, that you kind of talked about there towards the end, is just you're leveraging the Contrib-First model. But when you also look at this slide, probably the governance that goes into it, and some of the things that we've heard from organizations like Purina, is it feels like the best of both worlds. You get all the innovation from the community, but you have the centralized governance, which I know is particularly challenging with even just the specific New Zealand example that you talked about. Like there's a lot of complexity that warrants both of those things to work in an easy fashion in order for you to be successful with those kind of one-off requests. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to
Yeah, I'll just add that Purina and Jill specifically has championed that approach internally and really pushed us to think about our solutions in that way, so that that solution where I talked about with New Zealand, or another feature where a particular brand or wants a particular sort of 404 page, so that if you do land within a brand site section of the site, that user experience is sort of consistent within that site section. And so there's another solution where we created, but with Jill's support and advocacy, that we're taking those solutions. I mean, we are looking at the Contrib space to see what we can reuse, but we're also creating custom solutions in that manner and also pushing that back into the community. And then also working within the Drupal.org issue queues to make sure we solve bugs together and really pushing not only the solutions we are creating or we use from the community, but the overall project forward. So it can continue to benefit from that.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to having that internal confidence in the team and in the platform. So knowing that we have the experts in place and the best partners in place that are going to help us build solutions that will work for all of the brands or for all of the stakeholders. And then having that platform where we're not only building solutions specifically, but we're borrowing from the community of experts at Drupal as well to really deliver a solution that's going to meet more than one stakeholder's need.
Yeah, and I love that approach. And as a company that was founded and built on Drupal, we're grateful for the contribution in that, not only are you guys borrowing from the Contrib modules, building some of the things on your own, but it sounds like you're also giving back. And that's something that, that makes Drupal so special is that virtuous cycle. And so, you know, you being a big part of that is something that we're grateful for. And obviously I think it's a successful business model just based on how you kind of articulated that, Jill. So, sorry, I know I took us a little bit off track here. There was actually a question in the chat around, you know, the expansion of Drupal outside of just kind of the core properties. And I didn't get to it because I knew we would get to it. So I will let you guys kind of talk about expansion and innovation here on this slide.
Sure. So on the last slide, we talked about expanding to support other markets, but at the same time, we've also kind of expanded to support other internal stakeholders as well. So here's a couple other platforms that we're able to support. Everroot is an example of a site that started very small, but we were able to quickly build that for them. You can see our vet team we support. Pet Finder, I think, was the specific question. So Pet Finder is moving to the platform as well and really building out a robust experience that, that's a team that certainly benefited from all the work that's done on HubX in terms of kind of learning Drupal and learning the approach, but also borrowing some of the features and functionality from the team. I wanted to point out Pet Support Alliance. So that's a site that we built directly related to the COVID situation. So I mentioned that we have partnerships within the animal welfare industry. And when the COVID pandemic started, there were a lot of concerns about pets in shelters, about supporting shelters during a time when folks couldn't necessarily make it to those physical locations, or there were just extra challenges that came along with the environment. Part of that partnership was rooted in being able to stand up a site quickly where we could provide a service to not only shelters, but to pet owners as well during this time. And Purina kind of earned that seat at the table because of our ability to stand up a site quickly. So we stood up Pet Support Alliance within 2.5 weeks because of the platform that we have. So the platform enabled us to do that. And because we had that ability, we really gained a strong voice within the alliance of animal welfare partners. And we're able to, more importantly, provide a service to pet owners and shelters during a pretty uncertain time and a time of concern for both of those parties. So a great example of a stakeholder that wasn't initially on our roadmap, but one that we were able to support and you know, really deliver something beneficial for.
Jason, anything you want to add?
Well, there's one more thing that I'll add, and I think we'll talk about it on the next slide too. But actually, we can go to the next slide. One of the new innovations that we developed this year was Danny. So it's a personalized pet food selector. So a user goes through the experience and it starts with uploading a picture of your dog or cat, and the technology can take that picture and recognize the breed. Most of the time, some of us have more mixed breeds than others. I got a couple in my room, but it's a pretty intelligent tool that can recognize that breed. And then you answer a series of questions. And once you've completed that, there's an algorithm built into the technology that will come up with a pet food recommendation that's specific to your pet. So it's looking at everything from age of the pet, you know, weight of the pet and body type to allergies, preferences, and all those things. And it comes up with a product that really will be best for your pet. It's a pretty cool technology. And to address the question about Pet Finder and how we've kind of scaled features and functionality, Pet Finder is actually using part of this tool, so that breed recognition technology, and they're using that in the adoption world. So if you see a dog that you really like, you can take a picture of that dog and use kind of the functionality that's fueling Danny to understand what breed that dog is that you like, and ultimately find another adoptable dog of the same breed or similar breed for you. So just an example of how we've taken our features and scaled them across the board to different stakeholders.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Jill, I mean, I just wanted to commend you guys. It's just amazing the journey that you've been on, from like the brand sites as the foundation that you had to get done, had to standardize, the amount of success you've had in the agility there, and then having the bandwidth to support various parts of the business and then driving this kind of innovation. It just, I think it is where most of our customers who have multiple brands and different types of experiences are trying to go, but just the progression of how you got there and where you are today is just an amazing testament to the vision, as well as, you know, the architecture and development that the Nerdery has done. So it is something that most of our customers say to us, like, hey, we want to deliver an experience like Danny. We just can't get there because we're trying to keep things afloat on our main website. So I think that there are many lessons in terms of how you approach this from change management, but as well as sequencing to get to innovation. So thanks for sharing that progression. Jason, is there anything that you wanted to share here on this specific slide?
I was just going to say, this was really fun to work on as a separate sort of front-end application that, you know, on the outset, when we were gathering the initial requirements, we wanted to make sure that it possibly could be reused elsewhere outside of the platform itself. And so as a separate front-end application, it was engineered in a way so that it could be driven with some Drupal components and some configuration, but it can also be sort of relaunched in other areas. It's just an exciting thing to work on with Purina.
Absolutely. Okay, so metrics. I think Jill, this one's for you.
Yep. So we went into this, we would never have had success if we didn't have a vision and an objective in mind. And so we went into this with the hypothesis that if we migrate to this platform, if we consolidate our sites, if we build this in the right way, we're really going to see some great results in terms of visibility on the search engine results page, in traffic, and our ability to kind of service the entire organization and different markets with a very lean, agile team. That was our hypothesis, and I think we all were amazed by the results. So I can't share specific numbers, but we've improved our share of voice in organic search, and as a result, improved our organic search traffic. That's important to us because we find those users that come to us through organic search are our most engaged users and spend the most time learning about pet care, learning about our products. So that was a huge win for us. We're seeing more traffic to our critical pages, so our product details pages and where they can learn about products and read reviews. We're seeing a lot more traffic to those pages as a result. But we're also seeing tremendous savings. So we've kind of shored up the costs that were spread among multiple agencies and multiple development partners, and really gained some efficiencies there. But even more so than the savings, now we can reallocate that effort and those resources to innovation. So to things like Danny, to things like we're building out a continuing education platform for our vet team. Those are the projects that we can now do, and we can now do more efficiently and with more agility because of the team, because of the platform that we're built on, and because we were able to kind of redirect some of the duplicative costs and resources to focus on these things that are important to us. Just the fact that we're able to prototype so quickly. So we mentioned the map. We built a map that kind of showed where our ingredients in our Beyond products were sourced. And that started really small. We created that, I think it was in 2 to 3 months. And now we're going to really build it even bigger. And now we're going to be able to support other brands and kind of tell that ingredient story for other brands by building on that feature prototype. We're able to publish content more quickly. So we've got one team, as I mentioned, that's pushing out all the content. We've got 3,000 plus pages on Purina.com alone. That's all routing through one central team. And the organization is delighted by that, delighted by our ability to quickly stand up new pages, stand up campaign pages, support all of the brands with one team in place. We're much more compliant. So our IT partners are delighted by our ability to pass security scans more quickly. So before we we'd spend weeks and weeks trying to get our sites to be compliant. We don't have that anymore. We can usually pass through scans in a matter of days, where it was weeks before. So across the organization, we're seeing just huge gains in terms of our traffic, but also huge gains in how we work. And we mentioned Agile before. We're really focused on agility. As I mentioned, it's a challenge for a large organization, but what we've been able to accomplish with this HubX project has delivered entirely on that notion of agility, of being able to move quickly, of being able to start small and iterate until we get to something really big that can benefit multiple teams, multiple brands. So a lot of success. Some are in the hard numbers and some are just in the small wins across the organization that we see from this team.
Great, thank you so much for that, Jill. Jason, I don't know if there's anything you want to add, but I did want to just ask Jill one or two questions and follow up to what she said. So anything you want to add quickly? Jason, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Just so busy with the day-to-day, and the culmination of this is just, it's very enjoyable. Just listening to Jill and hearing about this journey that we've been on together, but I'm just so busy. It's really a moment of reflection for myself.
That's great. That's great. I know you put a lot of hard work into this project, so thank you. Jill, two quick questions I have for you that I think the audience might be curious about. You talked about the progression and what it's freed up your team to do in terms of innovation. One of the things that you mentioned is, I think it was your vet team and an education portal for your vet team. So it sounds like, in addition to the customer facing engagement, it sounds like you're starting to use the platform for some maybe employee focused engagement, or maybe your B2B, the B2B side of your business. Is that accurate, or do you maybe want to touch on that real briefly?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think two things. I think we're looking at how to deliver on our user needs, but also internal and some of our partnerships. So the continuing education platform is Daily Nutrition Matters. We have partnerships with vet schools across the country, and we're able to, through our vet team, provide ongoing education to those students. So we have a site where they can log in, they can take courses, complete courses, and progress through courses, and ultimately earn their certificate. So that's a different user, but it's one that the platform allows us to serve. I think the other point I wanted to touch on that Jason made earlier was our content publishing team. So they're users too. So we do a lot of, we call them quality of life for our publishers, and to make sure that they're able to use Drupal in the most efficient and effective way. So some of our innovation also are updates to how they can work and how they can kind of push content out to make that a more enjoyable and easier process for them.
Great, thank you for that, Jill. And then the other comment that I'd imagine a lot of our attendees have some form of interest in is, and the reason for it is because many of the organizations who are trying to figure out what you've been through are large multi-brand conglomerates who have security concerns, whether it's consumer goods or pharma or financial services or education. There's a lot of regulation and compliance that they need to adhere to. So do you mind maybe just giving, if you can, a little bit of insight in terms of what your process is internally that you have to go through to get content live, and how you've mentioned, you think you said a few weeks to a few days, how that has come to fruition and why with the new approach. Just maybe another level of any kind of additional detail if you're comfortable with that. If not, then we can move on to the final slides.
Sure. I mean, there's a couple different angles to it. One, just from a content and the words themselves that we're using, all of that kind of gets vetted through our legal and regulatory team before it gets published. But even that, we've seen improvements because we've got kind of one team touching the publishing of that, one team that if something changes or if we need to update something or take content down or adjust content, we're able to do that, you know, in minutes, as opposed to kind of reaching out to an agency and waiting a day or two for that to happen. So there's kind of one sense of security that we've kind of abated through the team. I think to your point about security scans and so forth, you can imagine when you have, you know, 70 different sets of code, trying to get those through our scanning team and through our compliance network, it was a challenge. And a lot of times we'd go through security scans, fail, go back to the beginning, try to do it again, hopefully get through the second or third time. We really don't see a whole lot of that happening anymore. So now when we release code, we put it through those scans, and Jason knows a little bit more about the tech side of this, but just because we have a consistent code base, we have a consistent team that's kind of learned from previous scans and kind of learned, you know, things as we go. We're just seeing that process has just been so much smoother. And every scan that we do was a cost. So we gained a lot of resources back just from eliminating that. But I think it's also shown our partners globally that we're doing the right thing and we're building this in the right way. And really kind of helps with any kind of the security concerns that we have, for everything from consumer data to just overall platform security.
Yeah, Jill, that's amazing, and I think it's something that is you know, candidly one of the first steps in the process for folks, because if you have 79 different code bases, and some of our customers might have that amount, more or a little bit less, that there's so much complexity in that, and that just being able to release a new feature is a big undertaking if it's distributed versus there's a centralized process. And so I appreciate you sharing some insight there, because I know that's a big headache and challenge for folks to overcome who are trying to solve for the same challenge that you're on the other side of. So I would appreciate that. I know, there's here, what's next? I think I might have jumped the gun a little bit because I've already started to ask some of these questions, but Jill and Jason, I know you guys have a robust roadmap and vision to add to your current success, but any kind of key points and things that you want to cover off on in terms of where Purina is headed, or what you want to cover on in a specific section?
Sure. I think, you know, we'll continue to invest in the platform. So we're coming up on 5 years of being built. So we continue to do the work behind the scenes, so to speak, to make sure that the foundation remains solid and more things to stabilize that. I say that only because I think it speaks to the buy-in that we have from the organization. So that work, platform stability, is not something that you can see, and it's not flashy like new features and so forth, but the organization is committed to doing that because it's the right thing and because they have so much faith in the platform itself and in the team and what we can do with it if we have it built the right way. So I think that's important. We're really working, of course, on ADA compliance, so putting some work behind that. SEO is always kind of the crux of what we do. So we continue to invest in SEO best practices and adjustments to ensure that we're getting the right amount of visibility there. And of course, features and functionality. So continuing with the prototyping, continuing with scaling features for different use cases, different users, different stakeholders. And I have it on here, we're the North Star for the organization. So what we're seeing is other markets are kind of following our lead in terms of how they're going to market with their sites and how they're building their sites and their components and their libraries and so forth. And we get kind of held up as the shining star across the organization. So we love that. We love to kind of show off our work, and we love to get accolades from the team, and just continue to kind of share our story so we can help guide them in the right direction too.
Awesome. that seems in line with your investment and your contribution to the Drupal community. It sounds like you're doing the same with within Purina. So very cool. Jason, anything that you wanted to add here?
Just that, we are, one of the few things that the team is excited about is looking at improving the content authoring experience around a particular set of features, just to, again, to improve that quality of life, but really just to empower them so that, that obstacle is removed so they can make the best use out of the platform and really deliver for, their stakeholders, right? Their customer, our customers' customers.
That's great. Thank you, Jason. I think we've answered a lot of the questions along the way, and we have about 4 minutes left. If you do have additional questions, please put them in the chat. I'm sure you've heard the wealth of knowledge from Jason and Jill, but maybe I'll kind of kick things off to start, some additional dialogue. Jill, as the leader of this project, we have other folks who are like you in comparable roles at different companies, and they are starting on their journey to try to standardize and drive efficiency. Like, maybe what are the 2 or 3 pieces of advice that you can give them looking back that you would have given yourself at the beginning of this project? And I know that's a big question. It's a big question. Yeah. So, and Jason, I think for you, sure, after Jill, like from an architectural perspective, and being the lead architect on this project, what are the 2 or 3 things that you might recommend to the architect who's going to be someone like Jill's partner going forward? So Jill, maybe if there's anything that comes to mind, and then Jason, for you as well, that would be great.
So I feel we moved quickly once we had our direction. But the thing that I hear is because the results were so great and because we landed in such a good place, I hear, gosh, I wish we would have moved even faster. And I think we did get buy-in quickly, but I think we kind of mulled over it internally for a bit because it was a big departure of, kind of everybody doing their own thing, and brands, to your point earlier, they like to do their own thing, and we need to embrace that, but also kind of push them to, come to the right solution. So I think I wish we would have made the leap sooner, but we made the leap, and I think that's the advice is just take it, kind of map out what you think the opportunity is, what the potential outcome is, and start selling that through the organization. I think once we were able to really paint a vivid picture of what we could do and what we could accomplish to our leadership, we got to go ahead really, really quickly and just were able to pivot to that approach.
Amazing. Thank you for that. Jason, anything from an architectural perspective? You obviously had a long view when you built this out with Jill, because of all the cool things you've been able to do and amazing results. But what maybe 1 or 2 pieces of advice would you give the lead architect on a project like this?
Knowing the core goals of the platform, and also understanding the individual goals of all of the stakeholders in a way to know those well enough in a way to help you communicate a strategy that will accommodate all of those things and the trade-offs that come with that, but to highlight the benefits of the technical solution that's going to do the empowerment part. I think that would be one of my key advice, just to know those things and inform your communication and the awareness building that you do when you interact with all of the stakeholders in the project.
Great. Thank you for that, Jason. Really great advice. Okay, I'm being told that we need to wrap things up, but I do have one more critical question that we need to get answered. How and where can you interact with Danny? That's been a request a few different times from various participants. So tell us where we can find Danny, please.
Sure. Just head on over to Purina.com and you'll find a prompt for find your pet food right there on our homepage. So Yeah, check it out and make sure you have a picture of your pet handy, because the breed identification thing is pretty cool.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Jill. So I know we are at our time, but I just, again, wanted to thank Jill at Purina, Jason at the Nerdery, for your time, for your effort in preparing for today, and for sharing your story and all the insights. I'm sure this will be tremendously valuable to our customers, our prospective customers, and partners alike who are trying to figure out how to go through this digital transformation in the COVID era effectively. So thanks again, Jill and Jason. Thank you for everyone who joined us. And like Stephanie said, this recording will be available. Stephanie, do you have any closing remarks?
That's it. We'll be sending out the recording in a few days. We might even include the Danny link as well, just as a friendly reminder, since that was a hot topic. If you have any additional questions for our speakers, feel free to send them over to marketing@theacquiateam.com, and we'll forward them over to Jason and Jill and get them answered for you. Otherwise, thank you all so much for all of your time. We enjoyed sharing it with you, and thanks again. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.